Does it still get annoying when people compare you to me?
I'm getting there now, mate. Just don't have the tan or the hair.
What's up, guys? Derek from MorePlaysMoreDudes.com. Today we're going to be talking about Natty versus not Natty, an example of what good genetics looks like naturally versus what it looks like sauced up. So this guy in particular, Mike Thurston, he's been accused many times of many natty or nots, and people still ask me to cover him. I usually do natty or nots on, like, I don't know, like actors and like big time celebrities and whatnot, but I guess this guy is he has a pretty big following, and he is one of the big names in the fitness industry, and he has a nuts physique. Like, I don't blame people for wanting to know, to be honest. Like, it is one of those things where he lives such a like attractive lifestyle. He's always traveling. He's always doing fun shit, and you as well as I know how difficult it is to adhere to a super strict diet regimen when you're constantly on vacation, when you're constantly, drinking with your boys, when you're constantly out and about. It's like, yeah, you can get your workouts in, but it's like, in general, your adherence to a perfect diet model is going to be relatively lackluster. It's going to be a lot more, you can hit your macros and whatnot. And at the end of the day, if you're enhanced, you have a decent amount of leeway when it comes to muscle preservation in an otherwise suboptimal context for maintaining an ideal physique. And this guy has nuts genetics. Let's not take that off the table before we get into this. This guy has absolutely like top 0.001% genetics. But recently he did a video with his brother, which we're going to get into soon. But here's just an example of how genetically blessed this guy is. He's walking around, and I'm sure there's no way you could maintain this body composition year round without being pretty fucking strict. But I'm just trying to exemplify that when you have this much muscle mass, you have a lot more leeway in terms of how flexible your diet model is. Like, you're still gonna have to count your calories, you're still gonna have to adhere to a reasonable intake, but when you're this jacked, and presumably he has a fast metabolism too, he can get away with a lot. So this guy never really gets out of shape. I don't think I've ever seen him like above like 11-12% body fat, to be honest, for the duration of his span on YouTube, which he's I don't know, he's not really like an OG YouTuber, but he's been around for like a minute, and here he is now, and honestly bigger than ever. He's never really regressed. He's only made like slow, steady progression, which you could argue is natural by the speed at which it happened, I guess. But I mean, like, look at this back, dude. Look at these traps. This is an arm day, so he's pumped up, but like, fuck, dude. Like, this guy is pushing 215 plus, probably striking distance of stage ready, and he's on, I don't know, he's like at Ibiza or some fucking shit. I don't know where he is, but I mean, he is looks nuts, and obviously the tan helps and everything, but he's like, this guy could compete in classic physique and give guys at the Olympia a run for their money. Like, to be honest, like, he could step on stage against guys like Logan Franklin, some of those other guys that are going to be competing in the classic Olympia. Like, he wouldn't be I don't think he'd be a top 10 contender, Thurston, but if he really wanted to, like, this guy could step on a men's physique stage, get a pro card, and probably go to the Olympia within like 1 year of trying. Like, that's how nuts this guy physique is, and this is not even trying to be competitive. Like, look at this, look at the insertions, dude. Like, look at this chest. It's just absurd. And again, you can't discount the genetics though, but again, he did a he did a video recently with his brother, Rich Thurston, and you can see here, this is what they look like beside each other, and Rich isn't a slouch himself. He looks pretty fucking good. He's less tanned and less yoked than Mike Thurston, but he's still, by normal person standard, a top 1% physique easily, and you can see how it runs in the family. Now, they actually did they did a workout together, and you can see them beside each other with some less, more obvious comparison angles where you can see like the development in the back and the difference, the development in the chest, the overall mass itself. Like, Mike Thurston's probably holding 15 pounds more muscle than his brother, at least. And, some might argue, this guy's a fitness influencer, so of course he's going to look better than his brother because he has more time to dedicate to the process, which we're going to get into after. But here he is. He's critiquing his brother's form on side lateral raises, and he's kind of helping him go through a workout. And the comparison is like night and day obvious, the difference between the two. Like, we don't have to really talk about body part comparisons. Like, the overall sheer amount of lean tissue is just significantly different between the two. And they get into it a bit later after the workout, after you see them, you know, compared to one another. And obviously the comparisons are made to each other quite a bit. And I'm sure this conversation comes up where it's like, your brother's on gear, are you on gear? Like, I'm sure this is probably a question that comes up quite a bit. And they do this comparison at the end to kind of like justify the disparity, it feels like. I'm going to kind of, that's the main thing we're going to be commenting on here, because it's one thing to just like look sauced, but then when you actually are compared to your, somebody in your fucking blood that is your brother, and he is significantly smaller than you, it really, like, the red flags are flying in terms of claiming Natty is much more difficult when you have somebody who's literally like a genetic counterpart to you that could be comparable to your physique probably if they, you know, did all the same things you did, and yet they aren't. So listening to them discuss why they look different than one another is very interesting, and I feel like sheds light on a few things, which we're going to be getting into now after the workout, which they talk about here.
So here we are with Ricky T, the man himself. We're going to talk a little bit about our training history and our muscles and genetics and so on and stuff like that. So as you guys may already know, I did a transformation video ages ago where I talked about how I first got into lifting roughly when I was like 17, 18 years old, and I was pretty consistent after that.
So Thurston's been training for, well, Mike Thurston, they're both Thurston, for 12 years, I guess, at this point, because I think he just turned 30.
However,
I did not.
no, you were late to the
bloomer.
party.
Yeah. I only got into it when I was like 22 years old.
Okay, so his brother started training at 22. So, you know, 4 to 5 years later than his brother, Mike, and, you know, less time objectively, which we're going to continue.
Yeah. I had a 5-year head start on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were probably naturally more athletic anyway.
You were always a little bit on the chubbier side.
Yeah.
You always you held on to quite a bit more fat. Do you just?
Yeah, if you store it there, I'd say I'd store it like.
So Mike had a head start, but is that head start really relevant now that they are both, I don't know if it's his older brother or not, but I mean, I'm assuming they're both around like ballpark 30. So it's like, you both had like 8 years. So is it really even a comparison at this point to say, oh, I had the training window from 18 to 22 and you didn't? Those years are largely irrelevant now that we're this deep into the 20s, in my opinion, or into starting in the 30s here, because it's like the most significant progress is going to happen during year 1, then year 2, like a substantial less amount, but still a decent amount. Year 3, you know, diminishing returns are starting to set in, but you're still making progress. And by year 4 and 5 of natural training, it's like the differences are like extremely minor at this point. Above and beyond that, you're kind of just gaining like little pieces of tissue every year, like very minuscule amounts that are, you know, essentially non-noticeable. Like when you see like actual natural athlete progression, you typically see a burst of progress within the first few years, and then after that, they don't really change that much unless they're cutting or bulking. And at that point, it's like they're kind of just slapping on more fat and then peeling it off. And that's where you saw, you know, like Marine, for example, his physique just went up and down like fucking 20 times over his YouTube span, and then all of a sudden he blew up. That was a flagship marker of hormone use. For the Thurstons, though, it's a bit different if you've been on gear for a while, which is, you know, sort of the what's being called into question here.
In the hips.
Yeah.
And just general.
He always found it hard to get his abs to show, but I feel like recently, in the past year, maybe even 2 years, you finally got rid of that last bit of body fat. Yeah. Why?
So this, in my opinion, is the representation of what very good genetics look like naturally. This, Mike Thurston's brother, I believe is probably natural. And this is what he looks like. He looks awesome. Most people would strive for their entire lives to look like this. Honestly, most guys on gear don't even look like this. And this is what good genetics looks like.
What have you done differently?
I changed jobs last year. So whereas before I was commuting an hour each way, I'd have to get up really early and just drive, get to work. Whereas now I work in town, so it's a 20-minute walk to So that's extra walking that I would be doing.
Yeah, you were
never used
basically,
to.
when you were driving backwards and forwards to work, you just get up, you drive to work, you wouldn't walk much because you sit at a desk all day, and then you would drive back home. So the step count would have been absolutely minimal.
Sleep wasn't as good because obviously I'm getting up a lot earlier. I was breaking my fast a lot earlier.
Does it still get annoying when people compare you to me?
I'm getting there now, mate. Just don't have the tan or the hair.
So, you know, it sounds like his job was a limitation in terms of his adherence to, I guess, either his goal step count for the day for energy expenditure or for perhaps even getting to the gym. However, now his lifestyle is different in his job format. He's able to walk more, and it seems like his training is more on point, and so is his sleep. One thing that often goes overlooked, though, and is a point that Mike is about to bring up, is the fact that Mike is a fitness influencer, so therefore his entire job revolves around his physique. So therefore, you know, he should have more time to dedicate to his physique, whereas a normal person won't. So it's only expectedly the fitness influencer is going to have way better results than the guy who's not a fitness influencer. That's not the case at all, guys. At the end of the day, if I worked a 9-to-5 job, I would have way more time to lift weights. If you're a fitness influencer or somebody who does social media content for a living, you're trying to run a brand, like I'm pretty sure Mike Thurston has his own brand, Thirstwear. He does, he's a sponsored athlete. He has training programs. He's traveling all the time. I wouldn't be surprised if he would potentially have more workload than his brother, who works maybe a normal job. I don't know if he's an entrepreneur or not, but I mean, typically the guys who work 9-to-5s, you have a strict mapped out schedule. It's actually a lot easier to get yourself to the gym. Like, I actually found I had more time to go to the gym and adhere to my bodybuilding routine when I was younger, and I was doing a part-time job, 2 part-time jobs, dating a shit ton, and going to school full-time in university. And I would still find the time to go to the gym, and I'd like, I even did competitions when I was in my earlier 20s. And now I barely go to the gym 3 to 4 times a week because I just have, you know, every minute I waste, I feel like is minutes I could be pouring into my businesses or making more content or whatever. And it's a bit of a trap that you fall into as a, you know, like content creator or somebody who does work online and stuff, but that's what happens. You have less time when you're an entrepreneur. You're working fucking like 80 to 100 hours a week. You're not getting more time to have a more flexible schedule. So it's like, you know, to compare a guy potentially who has a relatively like normal life that's regimented to a guy who's like on vacation all the time and stuff, but is running a company as well as making content regularly and doing who knows what else, living the bachelor lifestyle, which eats your time up way more than a committed lifestyle or a committed relationship, which it looks like based on Rich's page, I don't know if he actually is, but it looks like he has the same chick in pretty much every single picture. So I assume he's in a committed relationship, whereas Thurston's spinning plates like a motherfucker. Who do you think has more time at the end of the day? I would argue it's probably Rich, to be honest. So Mike is about to make an argument for why his physique is so much better than his brother's.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, I am lucky in a sense because this is my main job. My entire focus right now is just to look after my physique. I get to train whenever I want. I have obviously put a lot more hours into the gym. I've studied it, so I know what I'm doing. Not to say that you don't know what you're doing, but it's like the more hours you put into something, naturally you will be better at it, or you should be better at it. And then my lifestyle is a lot more sort of relaxed. I set my hours. I choose when I train.
Yeah,
I get up when I want.
Around that.
So like my whole life is revolved around training and my physique, whereas it's not with you.
Yeah.
Which is obviously not ideal, but you still make it work.
Improvements.
So I can tell you right now, like the difference between, like you only have to work out when you go to the gym for like an hour, realistically. Even if you're going fucking 6 times a week, you work out for an hour. I'm pretty sure Mike Thurston doesn't do any dedicated cardio sessions. Like I have never seen him talk about stepping on a treadmill once. It seems like he just walks and does his weights. How long does that really take? Do you really need to be, you know, a fitness influencer to have the time to train once a day potentially, or, you know, 5 days a week for an hour a session? No, you don't, guys. Like, this is a dumb excuse in my opinion, where I guarantee you his brother, if he adhered to the exact same training schedule as Mike, would not have the same physique outcomes. However, he clearly has the same genetics, or, you know, pretty fucking close. They are in the same family. And you can see the physique development in his brother. It's, you know, very, very exceptional. It's a very rare, their genetics are rare. Not many people look as good as these guys, naturally or not. So, in what circumstance would he be able to look like Mike? Personally, I think it's if he hopped on gear, and whether it is just you know, a TRT amount or an actual like blast phase. You know, you could probably blast a few times and then maintain it with TRT. But I mean, personally, I don't think that the physique change to go from the brother up to Mike is possible naturally, regardless of how much free time you have, despite them being in the exact same family with similar genetics. I think that there's no way you're gonna get to Mike's physique, even with exceptional genetics like Rich. I think you are going to have to hop on the sauce train. And that is, you know, my guess, personally. A lot of people are, you know, pretty on the fence about this guy because he has claimed natural for a long time, and he, you know, represents a pretty like clean brand, I guess. I don't know, just like doesn't really talk about gear at all, and he's actually come out a few times and used it as clickbait and whatnot, which is fine. But I mean, obviously the questions are going to arise a bit more when you start to see like direct comparisons of them like right beside each other on a couch and training in the gym, where they look significantly different than one another. But it's pretty fucking obvious that Rich has the same good genetics, but he's still nowhere near Mike. And when I say nowhere near, I just mean like the sheer amount of mass he has is not close. Rather, I think he has the potential to look like Mike. It's just not possible with his endogenous hormone production that he currently has. Rather, it would require some exogenous supraphysiological enhancement, to be honest. So that is my take on it. And I think this video sort of elucidated the difference between what good genetics, Natty and enhanced, really looks like. And I think if Mike's brother pushed the envelope and sauced a bit, maybe even just took a generous TRT dose, I bet he could probably, you know, push the limit and gain another 10 pounds of tissue and get pretty close to what Mike's at. But I mean, where he's at right now, the stark difference between the two, I don't think there's any way you could justify that one is simply bigger because they have more time to train, more days of the week, and more time to study fucking weightlifting. Like that doesn't fly with me in my opinion. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do you think Mike's natty? Do you think his brother's natty? Do you think the whole family's natty? What do you think? All comments are appreciated because they help the algorithm. Follow me on Instagram at @moreplates_more_dates, Facebook, Snapchat, BitChute, Twitter, TikTok, Apple Podcast. If you want to support the channel, check out anything I am associated with in the video description below. My TRT clinic, if you are seeking hormone optimization or testosterone replacement therapy or any kind of hormonal intervention in any capacity. I recommend you check them out. It's all telemedicine from the comfort of your own home. If you want to support Gorilla Mind, Gorilla Mode, my nootropic and turnkey pre-workouts, you can check those out in the video description below, as well as anything else I'm associated with. It's all in the video description below. Thank you guys for watching. Talk to you soon.